Hey, how are
Hey,
you?
Dennis, it's Steve.
So this is a little different because I'm used to Zoom, but I'm not used to the Zoom web. But anyway, should be pretty similar. So,
Yeah, so as people start to join the meeting, I'm going to add them in from the attendee side. Everybody will come into the meeting automatically muted. But what I'm going to do is right now I'm going to make you the co-host to the meeting.
yep.
So if you scroll over on the right hand side, if you scroll over my name, it'll pop up saying mute. And also, if you click on that, you'll mute me.
Yep. I just muted you. I can't unmute you. I muted you, but I can't unmute you. There you go.
I'm a host, co-host as well. So if you look at the bottom of the screen too, Dennis, there's a button that says mute all, so you can, if there comes a point where certain people need to speak or you need to speak, you can have everybody muted all at the same time.
Okay. Now even though I'm a co-host or sub-host, I can still share my screen because I want to show a presentation. That's okay?
Right.
Oh.
Yep. So if you want to just give it a practice run here, Dennis, if you go to the bottom of the screen, right in the middle, there's the green button that says share screen.
Right.
If you click on that.
Yeah, I have to pull up the program first. So yeah, I can figure that out. I just had to bring up the power. The PowerPoint's on my desktop. So is it 8 people waiting to get in?
Yes. So I'm going to have them join the meeting now.
Okay. I've got to unmute everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ed.
How are you?
Good, good. Jerry's here.
Yep.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
You guys.
Linda's here. So we got 5 board members plus Linda. So everybody's here. Stephen Leary from the mayor's office set us up. So I have
Stephen, who's not Andrew, that guy.
right. I guess so.
Thank you, Steve.
No problem.
Steve's my favorite until Andrew comes around. Then I gotta have him be the favorite.
That happens.
It's good to see
Andrew's
everybody.
gone to the dark side.
Yeah.
So the time being 4 o'clock, everybody is here. We can begin. You guys have the agenda, the revised agenda, and then the packet I mailed to you, I believe. Although I didn't mail it to Ed, I sent it across town.
Okay, do you want me to do the agenda as we typically do?
Yeah, we do have the COLA hearing is set for 4:15, so I figured if we could kill some time, and I don't want to get into Linda this early because she might go on over the 15 minutes. So I figured we'd do some of the.
Yeah, well, we'll go to 4:15. Maybe we get most of it done then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's go to tab number 1. It would be a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting held on April 23rd. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Motion made by Ed.
Second.
by Dave, all in favor?
Ed, aye.
Okay.
Freddie, aye.
Jerry, aye. Okay. Let's see, is there anything else here? New. Yep. new employees. I don't have the list. Is there new employees?
Oh, no,
Dennis?
that's just standard that it's on there. There've been
Okay.
no new hires.
Okay, notice of injuries with Sean Diaz, Police Department. I guess if you need to see that, just sure Dennis could provide it for you, so.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything over the internet, but
Okay. So is there a motion to accept the injury report?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
And I.
Freddie,
Okay.
aye.
All right, Dave, aye?
Dave, aye.
Okay, good. We do this in my club in Florida. I know we do thumbs up, so it makes it easier. Yes,
Which way's up? That one?
not that finger, Freddie. Okay, payment of the bills. You want to take a quick look at the payment of the bills? There's only a few there, so.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ed, second by Dave. All in favor?
Dave, aye.
All right, we're all set there. Okay, we'll skip over the COLA. All right, payment of the contributory payroll for the month of May. Is there a motion to authorize the payment of payroll?
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Freddie, second by Dave.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
And I.
Okay.
Dave, aye.
All right.
Jerry, did you miss page 2?
Did I?
Did you miss
Oh,
page
oh, yeah, I did actually. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So we did the payment of the bills. Okay, nothing for reimbursement. Weymouth Retirement Board.
Oh, we got that, so.
That's
group
part of the bills.
classification?
The group
Yeah.
classification, there's no vote needed on this group classification. It's just a standard,
Okay,
the standard thing that Bell did within changing the guy's title, so,
You went from 1 to 4, correct?
yeah.
Okay.
Just want to let you, for the record, it's in our notes.
okay, next one will be refunds. Stephen Bucher, former employee of Beld, and a new retiree to be refunded pension deductions which were taken in error. So the motion would be to refund Mr. Bucher $679.79 payables as follows: $611.81 to Mr. Bucher and $67.98 to the Rockland Trust for federal tax withholding.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by
Second.
Ed, second by Dave. All in favor?
Dave, aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Dennis missed all the thumbs up.
But did he?
I'm listening more, I'm
Okay.
taking my notes.
John F. Dooley and Tara Dooley Feehan to receive option B refund as the named beneficiaries of retired special needs paraeducator Jean Dooley, who was deceased April 23rd, 2020. The motion will be to refund John F. Dooley and Tara Tahan, option B beneficiaries, $24,3893. The amount of annuity to be payable as follows: $1,069.63 to John F. Dooley and $1,069.63 to Tara Tahan. This will be included in the retiree's payroll on 5/29/20. Is there a motion?
Question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dennis, the two 1069s don't equal the 2438. Will there be taxes on the payroll taken out?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Option
Okay.
B refund, yes.
All right.
And that was built into the expenses. So this is an unusual, I've never seen this before, where an option B refund has a 2 people, 50-50 split for whatever's left. So they get a little bit each.
So that would be the net amount?
Yes.
Okay. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Dave, aye.
Makeups and buybacks. Donna Marable, School Department paraeducator, requests permission to purchase credible service for the period of September 1, 2000 to September 30th, 2001, during which she worked as a substitute paraeducator at Braintree Public Schools. The motion would be upon payment of funds owed to grant Donna Marable 5 months of credible service.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made
Second.
by Ed, second by Dave. All in favor?
Dave,
And aye.
The seconds of the 38C liability. Jeannie Flaherty, school paraeducator, is interested in purchasing prior time with a Hingham Retirement Board as a part-time para sub from September 1, 2007 to September 1, 2009. It did not qualify for membership at the time. Braintree received a letter stating that Hingham will not accept liability for this time as she was not erroneously excluded from membership. So the motion would be to grant Jeannie M. Flaherty to purchase 8 months of credible service if she wishes to do so.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second? All in favor?
Ed,
Aye.
aye.
Dave, aye.
All right. So we go to payroll. Is that the next one? My things fell on the floor as I was printing them, so.
Okay.
So payroll the next?
No transfer out, no travel,
Okay.
payroll is next.
Okay. Payment for the contributory payroll for the month of May. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion
Second.
made by Ed, second by Dave. All in favor?
Ed,
Dave,
aye.
Okay. Financial reviews. Dennis, you have anything in finance for us to review?
I have the expense report here that I do every month. As you can see in the expenses, the bills that you approved, there were three bills totaling about $11,000. We got a new HVAC system here in the office that we agreed to pay for when they were redoing some remodeling here. It's working perfect. And so our piece of the pot was those three bills to Barrasso, Braintree Heat, and Sid Harvey Industries. So we got some quality air in here now, so it's pretty good. But I do have the reports here. I could put a package. I don't know when we're ever going to meet in person, but I can put a package together and send it to you. But all I have is the expense report. We're on target with our budget. Nothing unforeseen has come up. These three bills were built into the utility account, which we added a little extra to cover for some of the remodeling that's going on in here. This is the only piece that they asked us to contribute towards.
Okay, great. Why don't I just go to, I'll skip over the new business and I'll go to matter of record. We can finish that last page. And then we can get to Linda for preliminary results of the January 1 actuary evaluation. So on the matter of record, read this. You gotta make this bigger, Dennis.
Bigger. All right.
Jean M. Dooley, retired special needs paraeducator, school department, passed away on April 23rd, 2020. Ms. Dooley chose the superannuation option B at the time of her retirement, June 30th, probably 2009. The remaining annuity funds will be distributed in her name to beneficiaries John F. Dooley and Tara Tehan. Phyllis Burwell passed away April 17, 2020. Ms. Burwell received a survivor's section 100 allowance due to the death of her husband, Freddie Burwell, former fire department lieutenant, who passed away May 10, 2007. No further payment shall be made in her name after his date of death. Arthur Lucas, retired deputy chief, passed away May 13, 2020. Mr. Lucas chose a superannuation option B at the time of his retirement, December 18, 1982. There are no remaining annuity funds to be distributed due to the length of years of service. Years that he had been retired. Robert Monteforti, retired maintenance laborer, water department, passed away in May 8, 2020. Mr. Brandon Forty chose a superannuation option A at the time of his retirement, September 20th, 2004. No further payment shall be made in his name after the date of his death. Change of beneficiaries, Catherine Tomzak submitted a change of form. Angie Gallagher's school custodian submitted a change of beneficiary form, and Louise Ryan, planning department, submitted a change of beneficiary form. Retirement applications, Thomas O'Connor, fireman of the Braintree Electric Light Department, submitted a superannuation application effective July 4th, 2020. Patricia A. Bodie, secretary clerk, Braintree Electric Light, submitted a superannuation application effective May 27th, 2020. Retirement approvals, Kate Rundell, CNA School Department, received approval from PARAC for superannuation retirement effective January 24th in the amount of $9,368.76. Robert Beaton, Bell Watch Engineer, received approval of PARAC for superannuation retirement effective January 23rd, 2020 in the amount of $59,931.84. And received approval of PARAC for members survivor benefit 12-2D payable to Karen Erickson Williams, spouse of Preston Williams, former police officer who passed away January 23rd, 2020, in the amount of $51,633. Okay. On the business, COVID-19, and anything you need to talk about too, Dennis?
No, nothing's really changed
Okay.
with the operations of the town yet. People are still working from home.
Okay.
We're still pretty much here, but Julie's been working from home and coming in from time to time, so we still have the front door locked. So until that changes, everything will stay the same. So we get directed.
Okay. There was
There's one other thing under new business. Well, we have a couple minutes. I can go over that. Under new business, the second bullet point under KMS actuary is that there's been some negotiations going on with human resources and the town regarding our retiree health insurance plans. Even though July 1, the rates and everything have all came out. I think I brought this up a couple meetings ago. There was a vote taken and there's been approval by the unions to go forward with this new health insurance option plans that are going to come up. That's going to take place of, I believe, the MedX and the Harvard Pilgrim retiree plan. The devil in the details is we don't really know yet, but there is a significant savings to the town and the retiree if they choose to go to these plans. Some will have to if they have the plan that it's replacing. So we will get those costs. As you can see in there, there's some significant savings to those. And the plans itself, we haven't got the details as to what it's covering, whether it's generic brands or not, but to let you know that that's coming down the pike, and we'll have to deal with that with all our retirees that are going to be affected, have to change to these new plans. They're probably going to roll this out later this year, I believe September, October. So it'll be another change in the health insurance for some of our retirees, a lot of our retirees.
Okay. Any questions to Dennis on that?
I know, but I did have something on the COVID, but I think maybe I'll wait till after Linda's done so I don't take up her time.
Okay, great. All right, Linda, we have you under new business to begin with your preliminary results of January 1, 2020 actuary evaluation. Thanks for being.
Jerry, don't we want to do the COLA hearing?
Want to do the COLA hearing scheduled
Okay.
That's a
15?
scheduled 4:15 hearing, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can do the whole COLA. All right, Dennis, you got the show.
Okay,
Yeah.
This is our annual COLA hearing that we do. We schedule this every spring, usually in the May meeting. This is a separate public meeting outside of our retirement board meeting, but it's always incorporated into our retirement board meeting. So on that note,
Dennis,
go
can I
ahead.
interrupt you just for a point of order if I could?
Sure.
Two questions. Just one, was this sent out to any of the retirees so they could zoom in?
Absolutely. This was sent, this notice was put in their most recent mailing to let them know of the COLA hearing today. We've gotten a few phone calls and we told them this would be, because the shutdown of public meetings, that we can't have them in person. This was posted on the town website, and the Zoom meeting ID was posted out there. So if we got any calls, which we did get, we always usually get two people that come regularly. I forgot their names, but they did call and we told them what was going to happen, and they decided not to probably join this year. But yeah, the word was put out, and we have to post it internally. It was posted on is it PAC TV here or something?
Yeah, BCAM.
BCAM. I don't think the Zoom link was on the BCAM because the Zoom link was something we added later, but it was posted on the town website. And we've been advising seniors, retirees that call that we would be doing a Zoom meeting.
Okay, I don't know if it's applicable or not, but you can record this part of it if you want to keep it just as a record. There's a little record button up at the top, or there should be on your thing. Does anyone really have any feeling about that either way?
I think it is recording. My
It is
little
being
red dot
recorded.
says recording, so.
It is
Oh,
recorded.
okay, great.
It might even be going out over YouTube. I'm not sure, but that's usually where it goes.
Oh, yeah, okay, just in case, I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity, that's all.
Absolutely.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And I can see if anybody tries to join our meeting, I can see if there's anybody else waiting in the waiting room, and right now there isn't anybody.
All right, awesome, thanks.
So as you can see in the sheet that I provided, there's 3 options. Well, you could do 0, but this gives you an indication based on our current COLA base of $12,000. We ran the numbers, and if we did a 1 or a 2 or a 3% increase in that COLA base, this would be the monthly impact to our pension payments and the annual impact to the pension payments. So with a 3% increase, our pension payroll would go up $14,282 as of our April payroll, not this month's payroll. And annually would be a $171,381 increase. Some of the statistics that I think is important to let you guys know of is that Braintree has about 540 retirees that rely on a payment from us every month. The average pension of those 540 people is $33,390 as of the April payroll. The Social Security COLA for 2020 was 1.6%. The federal pension COLA was 1.6%. Mass retirees sent me some information. I know that says FY18, but that should say FY21. Of the 32 systems as of May 13th, 32 systems had already approved their COLA, and a lot of them are doing them this month and a few in June. 31 systems approved a 3% COLA on their current base, and 1 system, Andover, approved a 1.6% increase on their base. So most systems, well over 90% of them, are granting a 3% COLA on their current base. 18, as you can see, some of the statistics that I think is important is 18% of our pensioners won't even be eligible for the full benefit of the COLA, no matter what percent you decide. So 18.1% of our pensioners actually get less than $12,000 a year, and 27.5% of our pensioners fall below the poverty level based on just their pension. 38% fall below the mass poverty level, and 94.8% of our pensioners fall below the median household income. That's just assuming that their only source of income is what they receive. But most people do get some sort of other income. So since I've been here, 2017, we've approved a 3% COLA on the current base. I understand there's a lot of uncertainty going on right now with the town and its budget and overall the economy. That certainly should be a factor, in my opinion. However, based on our portfolio performance over the last 2 or 3 years, I think we've done very, very well. And just to give you an update, as you know, in March, we dropped from 224 million down to 183 million in assets. Huge loss, and we weren't the only ones. Since then, we've recovered half of that money. We're about 205 million right now. So just, I don't know what the market's going to do. It's been up the last couple days, but as of yesterday, we were at $204.5 million in assets. So we've recovered half of what we lost. I don't know what the next 7 months will bring. It would be nice if we could get back to where we started anyway, but I think our portfolio is in good shape. As you'll hear in Linda's presentation, our liabilities have gotten better. Not great, but they've gotten better. So our funded ratio based on 12/31 numbers is about 68% when it was at 65% in our last evaluation. So not huge, but it's important. So a couple other systems our size, their assets aren't even, they're about $20 million less than us. So we do pretty good. So my recommendation would be, I see no reason why we can't do a 3% increase on the current base. It would give our retirees a minimum of $360 a year to those that qualify for the full base.
Anybody have any discussion or questions for Dennis? Okay, the motion would be to grant a 3% COLA for the 3% COLA for eligible retirees effective July 1, 2020. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Go ahead, Ed.
I'm so moved.
Also, okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Okay, great. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And one other thing I could put in there too is the appropriation amount that the town has effective July 1 does have this factored in there. So there's no additional burden. Even if we had not approved of COLA 0, 1, 2, or whatever, that number wouldn't change. It would just be something that would be factored into future valuations.
Okay, great. All right. Linda.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for participating with us today. We appreciate it.
I love hearing all that stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Makes me want to join a board, but
Yeah.
alas, I live in New Hampshire, so I can't do
Well,
that.
we have a good board. We never argue about anything, so.
I know. Well, yeah.
So it's good.
You need some healthy tension once in a while, though, right?
Yeah, we had a few guys over the years, but we get rid of them, so we have a good board now.
We have enough tension everywhere else.
Yeah, as long as we get rid of those attorneys, we were all right. Right, Joe?
Come on, numbers.
Well, thanks for inviting me to this fun virtual meeting. As Dennis mentioned, we're going to be going over the preliminary results of the January 1, 2020 valuation. They're preliminary only because you haven't adopted a schedule yet. So there are some, what if scenarios that we're going to look at to kind of build into one of these. What do we have? 13 funding schedules? Sorry about that. We're going to probably throw a bunch of them out. Ed's going to beat me up on some of them, and he'll just say, I don't even want to look at those. So I guess.
Absolutely. And Ed's probably going to ask for a couple more schedules.
I figured that. Yeah, I knew. So I guess, Dennis, either you or I, if you want me to take over the screen, you can let me, or if you want to pop up the presentation, that might be the best thing. Either way.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll see. And,
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So maybe you have to just allow me.
Steve, are you out there? Could you give us a hand?
let's see.
Yes, Dennis, so if you just go down to share screen on the bottom.
Got that up. I'm trying, how do I get to my laptop so I can get the program over? So how do I reduce? So let me close out of that. And I want to go to share screen, reduce that, and get my presentation. Can they see that, Steve?
No, the screen that you'll have to share is the one that you're using right now.
That? Can they see that?
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Cool.
Didn't think I was gonna get it. All right, so now how do I go to the next page?
I think there's an arrow left, right? You can make this smaller if that works. There's usually an arrow to like next to the slide. And zoom in.
Here we go.
There you go. Beautiful.
All right, so
How about I give you a thumbs up when I want you to
all
click the
right, so
next
on.
screen. All right. So what we do, as you guys know, and I lost some of you. I'm only seeing Ed and Jerry and Dennis. Oh, folks. I really don't need to see me. Hold on. Let me try to get rid of myself. All right. That might not work because then I can't see my slide. Oh, I got another screen I could put you on. Let's try that. Okay. So what we do every other year is a periodic review of the system experience. So that means that on January 1 of 2020, we collected from Dennis all of the membership data, retirees, inactive participants, as well as active members. Did a bunch of editing of that data, asked Dennis some questions on it. He replied with answers, and we run liabilities based on all your current plan provisions and a bunch of assumptions that we applied to the model. We also received the PERAC annual statement as of December 31 of 2019, which is what we use for this valuation. So yay for January 1, 2020, status date or as of date, because the market was, rocking on that day. We had over an 18% market value return as of December 31 of 19. So not all of that gain gets put into this model and we've talked about this asset smoothing method, a whole bunch of meetings. We'll talk about that in more detail a little later, but we're gonna calculate this actuarial value of assets, which literally smooths in the gains and losses over the year. So it's not as volatile as using market value. We review all the assumptions and methods that we used in the prior model, make sure everything's still appropriate, consistently applied, that they're reasonable, and that they conform to our actuarial standards of practice. The goal of the valuation, and number one, in my opinion, is to develop the annual appropriations. We need to adopt a funding schedule in order to figure out which or what appropriations we're going to be paying in the next 2 fiscal years. The schedule goes out for 30 years. It's funded in, didn't do my math, sorry. I want to say 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 13-ish years. Remember the unfunded liability, that's the goal, is to be fully funded by 2040. We have a schedule that obviously gets us fully funded earlier than that. But these schedules are only really, I want to say, living for 2 years. Yeah, you got to prove it out. You got to prove that the schedule you're going to adopt complies with the Chapter 32 statute on how we're going to fund the thing. But you're really kind of picking those appropriations for FY22 and FY23. Okay. And once we have this whole model in place and you choose which way you want to go on which investment return rate, how you're going to fund it, we then can take that model and very easily determine any kind of cost for various benefit options. The one option usually that is the most popular to review would be your COLA base. Okay, Dennis? Okay, so key findings, what happened, and again, this is a 2-year period that we are looking at. We're looking at from January 1 of 18 to January 1 of 2020. We all know the returns for 2019 exceeded expectations. Our expectations are that we were going to earn 7.65, but we actually earned over 18%, I believe it was. But 2018, unfortunately, did not meet our expectations. Sorry, I have those gains and losses on the next page. But in total, in the 2-year period, it was about a $6.1 million asset loss. So, you know, a little bit more when you're not hitting the 765 in 2018, that obviously created a large loss. But again, we use an asset smoothing method, and that just means that all of those returns from 2019, we're not going to recognize all of them all at once. We're going to kind of bring them in over a period of time. And we're only going to recognize, you know, a certain percentage of them. And the loss from 2018, we're only going to recognize a certain percentage of those in this valuation. And then there was a 2017 gain or loss and 2016. And I have a chart that's kind of showing you all those numbers on how we're going to smooth those in. Okay. The actuarial value of assets, again, gets its own calculation of a gain or loss. Sometimes you can even earn the expected return on market value, but you might actually have an asset loss on your actuarial value of assets. It's really just the math that, because we're starting with something that's not market value, that could be lower or higher than market value. And when you add in those gains and losses that are being recognized over a period of time, you might not quite be there. So again, pretty modest, $5.4 million asset loss is not, you know, something that you should be too concerned over. This was actually, you know, a good 2-year period. In addition to the asset gains and losses, there's always going to be some demographic experience gains and losses. Those are the people. What happened to your membership in that period of time? An experience gain of 5.2 million. Again, you know, we kind of basically landed at almost zero gain loss. That's like pat the actuary on the back for almost hitting everything. What do these experience gains comprise of? Always you'll have losses. I heard today, you're going to bring in some people maybe who are going to have some past service, right? A new entrant truly isn't always new in these systems, and that's because in Massachusetts, the benefits are portable. You can go from Hingham to Braintree or vice versa and bring in some past service. So when you got a new person who brings in something we didn't expect, that's going to create a loss. Inactive mortality, that's always, you know, people who are living longer than we anticipate. This system is not huge, so you could have just a couple more or fewer deaths in a 2-year period that could create a loss like that. Gains, salary increases lower than expected. We have salary assumptions. How do we think salaries are going to grow in the future? We have to have an assumption for that. We look at every single person and we say, what was their salary 2 years ago? What did we expect it to be this year? And then what was it actually in the data? And we can figure out gains and losses. I'll give you some relative numbers on that in a couple slides on what these numbers look like. And then I always call it kind of the pre-retirement decrements. They're somewhat of a catch-all of everything else. There are thousands and thousands of calculations that go into this model based on many, many different assumptions. Some like turnover. Did people leave before or after we expected? Did people retire, you know, younger or at later ages than we expected? All those other activities that employees do is going to create gains and losses because nobody's going to do those things exactly the way we think. And Dennis was right. Our funded status did go up. Yay! 3 percentage points is actually pretty significant because at this funded status, you generally kind of see it flatlining a little bit. And once it gets into the 70s and 80s, you'll see it spike if you stay on track in your contributions. But going up 3 percentage points is actually pretty good. So what we do is we kind of calculate everything on a baseline run. We don't change anything from the prior valuation. And we want to see how did you fare from 1/1/18 to 1/1/20. And then a few little assumption changes that we're going to recommend will create a little bit of an increase in liabilities. So that's the 0.3 percentage points you kind of lost on that for these assumption changes. Dennis, all set? So just, you know, this is a summary. I don't have to go over every number, but you got 4 years worth of asset information here. You did actually have, you know, gains in 3 out of the 4 years. over what we expected. So again, expected 7.65. Back in 2016, though, the assumption was 7.75. So, you know, we even exceeded that assumption, which was higher at the time. So your market value of assets is creating these gains, and then unfortunately in 2018, a loss. That is what I was talking about, that those are going to be recognized over a 4 to 5 year period. In other words, of the $19 million gain we just got in 2019, only 20% of it is going to be part of our actuarial value of assets. That loss, 40% of that loss is recognized. So we still have some part of the loss that's going to be recognized in the future. The 2017 gain of 13.5 million, we're at 60% of that, and 80% of the small gain in 2016. Okay, so those are the kind of how the actual value of assets gets created. We figure out what did you get more or less than what we anticipated, and we're going to smooth those in. Now, the AVA is a percentage of the market value. That's kind of important because at this point, 1119, you aren't fully recognizing all of market value, which is good. It's a it's more conservative. So that means we've got deferred gains. We have more deferred gains than we have losses. So we still are kind of holding in our back pocket more gains to recognize in future years. Okay, that's Dennis. Here's a little historical chart for you to see, what returns those numerical, and this kind of is very telling. I mean, the blue lines are the volatility of your return on market value all over the place. We chopped off 2008, probably should have kept it there just to kind of, give everyone bad news. But as you can see, there's a lot more above the line than below. The red line is our assumption, and the green bars are the return on the actuarial value of assets. The goal, if you wanted zero gain or loss and know that you were kind of on the trajectory of hitting your target every time, you want that green bar to kind of line right up with the red assumption. So this just gives you a little bit of kind of visual on where we are. Dennis? Here is we don't need to follow the herd mentality, but it does give you an idea of what the 104 systems in the Commonwealth, their investment return assumptions are. A lot of this information probably doesn't include a lot of 2020 valuations. We're not sure what kind of movement all of the people are going to make coming up this time. But this is kind of telling that at this point, there is not one system who has an investment return rate of 8% or higher. Everybody is pretty much, as you can see, 7.5 is probably, people who were around 8-10 years ago and are still shifting their paracs. They're very aggressive in moving people down to where the state is, which is 7.3. Just for some perspective, I went back to the 1997 annual report, the oldest one I could find online. You guys were at 8% then, and you were at 8% all the way through 2004, at which time your investment return rate was reduced 12 basis points to 7.88, stayed there for about 4 valuations through 2012. Then got reduced to 7.75, and last valuation we reduced it to 7.65. So you're one of those 7.65 buttons there. But this kind of gives you a good idea of where everybody else is. Dennis? All right, so part of the model is we need to know what your plan provisions are, and they're pretty much the same as the 2018 valuation. No changes coming up. The COLA base remains at 12,000. It's pretty much the only, I want to call, meaningful plan provision that if we changed it, it would truly change your numbers. Some of these other provisions that could be adopted are usually pretty insignificant. There might be some kind of death benefit that gets upped a little bit, but this is the biggie, the COLA base. And then back in 2011, the pension reform modified benefits for anyone who became members on or after April 1 of 2012. Right now, you're at 354 members in this category. That's obviously going to be the growing group of active members, and your, I call those tier 2 people. The tier 1 folks, all the people hired before April 2nd of 2012, those are going to be the ones who are closer to retirement. Those people who are this group, when this change came into play, there was like basically zero impact on your liability. And why is that? Because all these people are new. They've got no past. So there won't be a real impact on any of this until these people start retiring, basically. So we're not going to see anything. But of course, as we go through from 2012 forward, you know, the liabilities are lower for these people. And, you know, for obvious reasons. One, the biggest impact is the age at retirement. The 2.5 multiplier for this group 1 people is 67, and that is a change from 65. Group 4 people, they can get their 2.5 multiplier at 57, and the tier 1s are at 55. So that's definitely a huge benefit change for those folks. There's a whole bunch of other provisions that impacted this tier 2 group. Another one that's pretty significant, it's a 5-year final average pay as opposed to a 3. All that's being recognized. So when we see a person with a membership date on or after April 1 of 2012, they're all being valued under the new plan provisions. Okay, Dennis? That's not somebody in our call, right? hearing somebody talk.
Yeah.
Okay, here's just a little bit of information on your membership. You know, all this pretty typical. That inactive number kind of looks alarming, but it's probably folks maybe just hanging on. A lot of times what happens is you may not know that somebody actually has retired or left. I have to say had left. And I'm sorry, there's somebody that's coming into my house. Mike. So I want to say that these changes are pretty standard. You know, your active membership going up a little bit, and that's just probably recognition of somebody who might have been retired. I'm sorry, might have been an active member on that last day, or retirement office maybe did not hear that they actually terminated. Okay, so this typical stats, again, over a 2-year period, these are the changes that occurred over 2 years. Okay. Dennis? Historical membership counts kind of gives you an idea of how your membership is changing over the years. Now, one of the things that's always obvious on a mature system such as this one is actives tier 1 and actives tier 2, right? The blue and the red are all your active memberships. Okay, that's going to stay relatively stable if you can eyeball across and stay at the red when you get to it. There's no reds in 2012 and before because that tier two group did not exist yet. But with people living longer and the retirements that are occurring, you know, you're going to see the whole bar increase and the whole bar from year over year as this plan is maturing. That's going to be a larger bar on the right. This in pay per active, it's really just a ratio of the number of retirees that you have in a mature system that is going to generally go up. You were kind of like sloping downward, which is a little unusual. Maybe your retirees weren't living as long as typical, but your active group was staying very stable. This line, the spiky line, I'm not sure, I don't have screen control, but the spiky line, as you can see on the stat on the far right, that's a pretty wide gap of, you know, from 0.58 to 0.74. If we actually kind of made that a little actually wider, that wouldn't look so spiky. It would look a little more, I want to say a little more level. Those are the kind of stats that we like to watch to just kind of, you know, you're in it, as I said, you are a mature system, means your retiree group, you know, is not quite greater than your actives, but you're heading that way. So those are the kind of things that we want to kind of be mindful of and watch. Dennis? So just a really quick summary of these are the major assumptions that are used in the model. As I mentioned, the investment return rate is at 7.65. Your salary scale, probably not going to recommend any changes to that. It looks high. You're probably going to say, we don't give 6% raises or 7% raises. This does vary by service. So you're talking about your short service, probably lower paid people are going to get on the high end the percentage increases. These include your COLA or your inflation increase, any kind of step increases, and merit pay. And that's applied on an individual by individual basis. Each person gets this assumption applied to their salary all the way from the current to their time of expected retirement. Payroll growth does go into the model, and I'll explain more when we start looking at the funding schedules, but your payroll growth assumption, that just means how does the total payroll from year to year increase? And why isn't it kind of the same as your salary scale? Well, you might have people retiring who are generally older and probably higher paid leaving, and they're going to be replaced by a younger, maybe lower salaried person. So in general, your payroll growth will probably be closer to kind of inflation or a little bit higher. We do add to your appropriations every year your annual expenses, and those are strictly administrative expenses, nothing to do with your investments. So that's the, turning on the lights at the retirement office and the new software that Dennis was just talking about, all those things that the system pays for. The theory is if you know about these expenses, you might as well pay them on an annual basis so that you're not continually just reducing your assets and then rolling that back into your funding schedule. Those expenses also we anticipate will increase year over year. And the last kind of major assumption that we have in the model is the mortality rates. And we're continually looking at those. That is a hot topic for the actuarial community, continually looking at this mortality improvement. And that just means that each cohort or literally each year of birth group will tend to live longer than the group before them. So that, in English means if I'm 65, I have particular mortality rates assigned to me because I was born, 65 years ago. But my maybe 40-year-old guy today, when he turns 65, he'll enjoy better mortality. And that just means that he will live longer than the 65-year-old today. HERAC actually did just recently complete a study of the local systems and reported back with a recommendation for a mortality table change, which we actually have incorporated into this valuation, and talk about that under recommended assumptions. Okay, Dennis? It's just a little graphic on how we're doing. Now, again, kind of looks like flat line, right? That's the funded status on market value, the pale blue, versus the black dotted line is your funded status on actuarial value of assets. It sort of looks like you're not making any progress, but keep in mind, from 2008 to 2020, as I mentioned before, you've had an investment return decrease in there. You haven't had a COLA-based increase, but time value of money, that actuarial accrued liability is going to increase as your group matures. You're giving COLAs, which we do anticipate a 3% on the 12,000 COLA base, but these, there are other assumptions. Mortality improvement was added in here somewhere, and probably salary scales were changed a little bit. So the red bars are generally going to go up. Your actuarial value of assets have kind of kept pace. I mean, you're, in terms of a percentage of your total accrued liability. Once the funding schedule is, set and you're at a 68, 69, 70% funded ratio, you will see that it doesn't take many years for that to kind of spike up. And that's what I was saying. As you get into the later years of your funding schedule, you'll be paying less in interest and principal will be paid off faster. So that can spike up as a because we already have in our goal, we have that we're going to be fully funded, hitting that 100% by 2035. Okay, Dennis? Really quickly, sources of gains, losses, I already alluded to them, but investment return, I guess maybe it's not the largest one. Salary increases, we are probably a little high on salary increase assumption. The others are pretty modest, I have to say. New entrants, you're always going to get a loss there, but your investment return, we did have a little over, I think it was about a $5.8 million loss on investment return. But this kind of gives you a graphic on where the sources of gains and losses during this 2-year period. Okay, Dennis? Okay, and this will bring us from funding schedule A, which generally we never use. The funding schedule A is basically done under the baseline runs, and that just means all assumptions exactly as they were in the 2018 valuation. Once we put forward these recommended assumptions, then that's when we would go right to the B schedule, all except the investment return rate. Because investment return always requires a lot more discussion and possibilities. So we kind of keep, besides the investment return, all of the first 3 bullets are going to be in your funding schedule B. So we updated the mortality and mortality improvement rates. As I mentioned, PARAC did a study and we adopted their recommended table. Doesn't increase the liabilities by a whole lot, just one, relatively speaking, $1.1 million on your several hundred million of liability is pretty small. It's usually under like a 1% increase. Net 3/8C transfers, we watch those carefully and we want to make sure, again, if you've got an expense that you know is going to happen, it's just better, policy to pay for that as you know when it's going to happen, rather than continually rolling them into your unfunded liability. The net 3/8C transfers, those are the monies we get from other systems, and then minus the monies we pay out to other systems for retirees who have service from those systems, or vice versa, who had service in Braintree and retired from somewhere else. Generally, locals are net losers on the net 3/8C transfers. So you won't see a whole lot of funding schedules with a negative number here where you get a reduction. And that just means that Braintree in general is paying out about $150,000 more to other systems than they are receiving. Dennis probably could speak to this, but I think the mass teachers were doing over the past several years a big cleanup project. They were way behind and sending out very old bills. That increased these net transfers out to systems. So we kind of look at like a rolling average of a few years. We don't want it to be too erratic. So as you can see, the numbers are quite rounded, but we did increase that by $15,000 just to kind of stay on pace. And again, if you know of the bill you're going to get, you may as well pay for it. Decrease the payroll growth rate. Again, we're watching inflation. Probably salary increases are not going to be that robust coming up. And the decrease in the payroll growth rate actually helps your funding schedules, because the schedule, any appropriation made, each dollar goes first to the normal cost, first to expenses, and then it goes to the unfunded liability. So with this assumption, we're freeing up a few dollars that we can send to the unfunded liability payment. And why does this matter in the funding schedule? The normal cost increases based on your payroll growth rate. Okay. And a couple of assumptions, if we did want to entertain them in reducing the investment return rate, I provided some schedules. The C schedules are going to be at 7.5. In grand total, like once we change assumptions, we're starting with a brand new normal cost and a brand new unfunded liability. The unfunded liability would increase by $4.8 million with that reduction to the investment return rate. In addition to that, if we actually went even lower to 7.25, we're talking about a $13 million increase in liabilities. just, you know, a stroke of a pen kind of thing, then we're starting with $13.1 million more to amortize on the schedules. And that would be the D as in David schedules, the 7.25. So, and that's where Ed's going to say, Linda, just throw out D. We're not even going to talk about that. So I would like to pause for a sec. Dennis, can you just flip one screen just so I see what's, okay. I would actually like to kind of pause here and get some questions if you have any, answer some questions on all the stuff we just talked about. And from that point, we're going to start getting into the schedules and maybe we can narrow down and throw out some of them before we spend too much time on 13 schedules.
Linda, I'd like to say maybe we can just eliminate the D schedules.
There we go, in the trash right now. 1, 2, 3 of them gone. I mean,
Thank
that's
you.
pretty aggressive going to 7.25 if you ask me. NEPC, the PRIT consultant, they came out with their annual long-term outlook, and they actually went from 7.9 down to 7.3, I think. The state went down to that return, but I don't really think it's all that appropriate, you know, necessary to follow lockstep with the state's assumption because their budgeting process is a whole lot different than the locals. So 7.25 is gone.
Thank you.
We can talk about the B schedules if you'd like, if there's, I mean, I'd be happy to answer any questions on kind of like, how do we, you know, we got from 1118 to here. If anybody has any questions on any of that material, be happy to answer it.
I'm wondering if you could take a look at the B2 schedule and see if we can do something to take those first couple years of the 8% increases, lower that and basically push it out. So in the higher years, we'd be at more than the 3.8%, but the first few years would be under the 8.
Yes, okay, so if everybody can go to the B schedules, I'll just kind of explain how we get from, you know, B1 to B2 to B3, and then what Ed is asking for. I'll tell you what we can, certainly tell you what we can do. So when we threw in those recommended assumptions from the previous slide, we're going to increase the liabilities a little bit, $1.1 million. It was not a lot from the baseline run. And we also upped our net 3/8C transfers. And what we do in the B1 schedule that nobody would ever adopt is we let the math happen. We take that unfunded liability and we amortize it over the number of years so that you're fully funded by 2033. If we did that without, quote, capping anything, we're looking at a 22% increase. So we immediately throw that out but we just want to let you know, if you know, if we had to kind of pay what was on the schedule, here's where it is, it's 22% increase. But the statute allows us to cap any appropriation that's over 8% to 8. But it doesn't have to be 8. As long as your schedule will work, it can be anything you want it to be. So if you go to the B2 schedule, we capped that at 8, but what Ed is asking for is, I'm not really that excited about an 8% increase for FY22 and 23. Maybe I'd like Ed, fill in the blank, 6, 5, 4.
Yeah, I don't know, 4.5, 5. I just ballparking it for those 2 years, and it would push the out years up from the 3.8 to, I don't know, 5.5.
Yeah, and you know what?
5.5 run for all of them.
It could. Actually, I think we had done a schedule like that, and I said to Dennis, he probably is looking more for short-term relief rather than pushing the schedule out. So I didn't really love B4, B5, but I'm pretty certain you can stay at the 2033 end date, which is, you know, you guys made excellent progress. I would hate to see you push that out. but we definitely have a lot of years. This 8% was only alive till 2025. We've got a lot of years to pick up any shortfall of an 8% cap. And that, all that means is, say I change those first couple of years to 5% caps. I'm pretty sure, and then, you know, maybe then, I mean, would you go back up to 8? Or would you want to see maybe some number? What is that number that could be a level? That's another, quote, popular way to look at this. Instead of going 8, 8, 8, 8, 7, 3, 8, 3, 8, 3, 8, we could find the number that basically levels all of these increases over the life of the schedule.
Could you do, say, 4.5% for the first 2 years and then
Whatever that number is.
for the rest? Yeah,
Yeah, the X fills in the blank till 2033.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that would work, because it's only 2 years that you're topping off. And as you know, I mean, you kind of know, right? If you don't pay today, you'll pay
You're
more
gonna pay
tomorrow.
tomorrow, yep.
Not just pay tomorrow, pay more tomorrow.
No, understood.
Yeah, but
It's
your
just-
tomorrow is not that far out, so that, you know what I'm saying? You guys have a nice conservative schedule here ending at 2033. You've got 7, you know, buffer years that I'd hate for you to start dipping into when you don't really need to. So that's why I would say, you know, I tried shortening your, I mean, here you can see the difference between B2 and B3. By just shortening 1 year, you know, you really just kind of gave yourself a couple more 8%. We don't have to do that. I feel like any changes to a more conservative approach right now is probably not warranted. With all the uncertainty, nobody really knows what 2020 is going to bring at the end of this year. I wouldn't recommend going from 2033 to 2032, so I would just scrap B3. But I really would be hesitant to push your schedule out, which is 4 and 5. Because you really don't need to. I'm not sure you're going to need to do that. If you're looking for some, you know, 4.5 in the first couple of years relief, and then whatever increases, it's going to be more than 4 probably.
Okay,
I feel like that's like a good, you know, keeping that 2033 the same, putting
all
in
right.
4.5. Does that sound
So with that
cattle?
logic for B2, I'm wondering if you could do the same kind of thing for option C2.
Yes, we can.
And what that would do is drop the interest rate from 7.65 to 7.5 and keep the 33 years.
And the 4.5 for 2, and then the whatever the X for the remainder.
The other years.
Yep.
And then while we're on a roll, if you looked at C4 and followed the same logic, pushing it out another 3 years, and just what C5 would look like, pushing it out another 3 years. So 4 options there.
Well, let me just say this about that. So C4 goes out to 2036.
Yeah,
There is we'll call it an unwritten mandate. Don't know how you guys feel about qualified PERAC approval letters, but they're, you know, they're still holding on to 2035 as we like everybody to be at 2035 and earlier. Again, to keep that buffer. But we can do these as what ifs. I wouldn't recommend that you go out to 2039.
well, again, I'd just like to see him and again, yeah, just a what if.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
know that the state's talking about pushing their schedule up for them out. I don't know what you've heard or if you've,
I have not heard if they're doing any of that. Why? Because PERAC is kind of not working on actuarial stuff right now.
right, but the state's
They can't.
working on a budget and they're looking at about a $4 billion gap. And what's one of their biggest expenses after healthcare?
Pensions.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if they talk pushing it out 5 years to 2045 or 2050. And I would assume what they're going to do for them, they would allow or give the option to cities and towns.
Yeah, I kind of always, I mean, do you remember the days when the state was hovering their investment return rate at 8 and pressuring all the locals to be under 8, and they weren't really going there themselves? So I'm not sure. We've had calls with PARAC. They haven't talked about any, I want to call it funding relief on anything. People are chattering about, if you have an appropriation due on this July 1, what if you don't pay it? What would happen in terms of, you're going to delay payment? Do you charge interest? There's nothing in the statute that requires that. That's pretty much all I've heard from what PARAC is talking about as a general. I think they actually sent out a memo on that, right?
Yeah, I think Dennis had it in our paperwork. Is it 22?
Yeah, PARAC is allowing flexibility. You don't need to pay the full amount on July 1. A lot of towns are going to have cash flow issues as of July 1. And to pay, a $10, $12 million bill on July 1 for some places would be hard. So that if you don't pay it on July 1 or within a day or two, there's that interest that can be charged. They're allowing the systems to, allow, half the payment in July, half the payment in December without any penalty, or even half, something needs to be paid in July, and then the other half when their cash flow situation is under control. So they are allowing a little flexibility, but each system needs to adopt it.
In Braintree 12 years ago, I'm sorry. In Braintree 12 years ago, when I first came, it was, an $8 million appropriation, and we literally didn't have the cash to pay it. We were processing the first warrant, and we paid the pension, and basically we're holding off all the other bills until our taxes came in August 1st. And we've been able to build up some reserves and some cash balances, but again, we'll see what happens June 1 when our property taxes are due. A lot of other cities and towns have allowed the tax date to go from May 1 to June 1 without any additional interest, and we'll see what happens. I haven't sat down with the treasurer, and again, after June 1st, we'll take a look and see where we stand, what cash flow looks like, and what everything else is. And we'll go from there. I don't know about the state too. Again, they're currently making payments to cities and towns on a monthly basis and without a budget, I would guess, but I'm not going to assume that they would continue to make these payments based on maybe the fiscal 20 level, or take the fiscal 20 and reduce it a certain amount. But usually that comes in the last week of the month to the cities and towns too. And in our case, it's, $1.5 million a month. So right now, I'm just not sure about making the full pension appropriation on July 1 as we have in the past, but we'll have further discussions.
Yeah, the statute, remember, is half July 1, half January 1, right?
Right.
And then we, quote, kind of discounted back if you pay it early.
Yeah.
But the statute, again, doesn't talk about what happens if you don't pay it on time, if you don't pay it under that schedule. And I think that PARAC memo gives every board the opportunity to decide how they want to, approach it.
Right, the statute's silent about actually charging the interest, and it gives the systems or the boards the ability not to.
Right. I always kind of equated it to, there's the word discount that you get, but then is there the word penalty if you don't? So, you gave them a discount, but then do you penalize, or do you technically take away the discount? I don't know. I mean, it's, and it's hard to say what's the impact of that, because if you don't pay the appropriation, are you going to have some cash flow issues yourself in the retirement system? Meaning, what are you going to do? You got to make sure you can pay your pensioners, right? And
Burn down.
in this market, if you have some cash flow issues, do you want to be selling off? But if you're positioned well, then you might be able to sell off, more on the bond side than on the equities. Then on the other hand, if you don't make the appropriation and you like to invest it, you might be losing out on some opportunities to invest in a lower market. So there's like so many pieces that kind of play into, what if we don't make the payment? It could go your way or it might not go your way depending on what the market did. The market recovers tremendously on July 1 and now you're invested into a high market that might tank again at the end of the year with all this uncertainty, then I guess that would say, well, we shouldn't have taken that appropriation in July. Should have waited. So do you want me to kind of recap the new schedules that we will create? Just so I make sure I've got it. We're looking at B2, B as in boy. We're going to cap years 1 and 2 or FY 22 and 23 at the 4.5%. And then we'll come up with the what is kind of a more level increase year over year in the following years through 2033. That will be our adjustment to B2. We'll do the same thing with C2.
Yes, please.
Yep, do the same with C2. And then maybe we'll look at, let's see, not C3, no, C4 and 5. It might not mean that you've got to go all the way out to 2039. But we'll, because 2039, as you can see, already has a under 4% for every single year. The C5 schedule, it's kind of already flattened out in a way.
Oh, you have C5.
C4 probably can be flattened out a little bit better.
Okay, yeah, C5
C5 is kind of already at a,
is already there, so I don't need C5 then.
okay.
But yeah, on the C4, if you could push out or take the 2 8% years and push them down,
Yep.
great. And that way what we have is a B2 will be at the current 7.65%. And then the other 3 would be what it would look like it reducing the assumed rate of return to 7.5. And again, we're coming down a little bit, trying to do it gradually instead of going from 7.65 to 7.2 or 7.0. I mean, I think it's just too much of an increase in the unfunded to do it all at once. But
I agree.
again, we're demonstrating to PARAC, look, we understand and we're coming down. We were at 8% and over 3 or 4 valuations. We're coming down to 7.5. I would anticipate going forward, again, if the economy turns around and things continue to get better, we can bring that down also going forward 2 years and 4 years. That's one man's thought.
So we're gonna get some revised schedules, about 3 or 4 of them, different schedules.
Yes.
Okay. And once I get them, I will forward them to the board. And I don't know when we want to make a vote. We'll take it on put it on the agenda for June meeting. Ed, I didn't know if we wanted to schedule something and have a presentation to the mayor at all, or settle it at the board level first, or?
I can talk to him and the chief of staff and see what their preference would be. Right now I think we've been very busy. We hope to have a budget voted next Tuesday.
Right.
Last week, 2 nights ago, Tuesday, we were here until about 10:15. They voted a supplemental budget and the capital plan. The previous night, we were out 4 nights with the Ways and Means Committee for budget hearings and capital hearings. And And there's this other thing going on that they're meeting on all the time, so.
Yeah.
Let me touch base with him after this meeting, and I can get back to you and see if we could do maybe something like this for the mayor and chief of staff when we have these other options, and say, just kind of walk through the whole process. Again, the mayor,
Right. The objective, correct me if I'm wrong for everybody, the objective here is to try to do something to help out the town where the increases aren't quite as deep as projected. That's pretty much the bottom line. Right? Right.
I'm all in favor of that myself. I think we've always demonstrated we'll help the town out we can. I'm like Linda, I really don't want to extend the funding schedule right now until we're in dire need. We always use the term wiggle room. So that's what I'm in favor. I don't mind helping out the town, but I think we should try not to extend the funding schedule at this time. So that's my one man's thought, Ed.
yeah, what I'm trying to get is just, again, these would show us some options, and my crystal ball is kind of foggy when it comes to what is going to happen at the state level, and I think that's dependent in part on what's going to happen at the federal level. What I'm hearing is there may be some changes in the language of the current CARES Act funding, which right now, money went to the state and cities and towns, and it's to be used on directly related COVID expenses. Things like public safety costs, healthcare costs, food service costs, housing costs. And I believe at the federal level, they're looking to change or modify that language to say if there are additional funds available after these costs, that those funds could be used to help supplement reductions in general revenue for cities and towns, and also the state. And again, we're talking about, I think it was $2.7 billion that went to the state. And of that, 55% was earmarked to the state, 45% was earmarked to cities and towns. And they've announced to distribute, well, they've told us there are funds available in Braintree's case. Bear with me, but I think the number was about 3.2 million in funds. And that, I believe, is about half of what the cities and towns allocations are to them. And again, I'm hoping in the next week or two, we'll have something from the feds to say that we could use excess funds allocated to the communities to help in revenue shortfalls for next year. And potentially that could help us with reductions in local aid over and above what we currently budgeted. And again, that these funds could help the state cover their gap. And again, the number I'm hearing is somewhere around $4 billion for next year on about was a $44 billion budget.
So if we don't get back to 224 million, can we get some of that CARES Act money for the money we lost?
We could say it's directly related to COVID.
It all happened in March. It all happened in March. Anyway.
I can send you over the guidelines. I don't see anything specifically identified as investment rate or return on pension fund assets, but
So Linda will put together a few more scenarios and we'll talk about it again. Yeah.
that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Linda.
The timing is fine too, by the way. Like there's no, rush into any of this stuff. I think, and of course, I don't know, I always feel like as COVID-19 is the equivalent of delay, defer, right? The next deadline, I feel like, Dennis, right, is when you guys have to submit a funding schedule to PERAC, and that's usually not due till October 31 or something.
Yeah, I got to get the salaries in September, so it's
so
September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got plenty of time. We'll get these out to you in a few days, and then you'll
Okay.
have them for your next meeting. And if you want me to zoom in, I can zoom in, I guess. A lot better than trying to travel to Braintree.
Right.
So that if we're still in that mode, I certainly can walk through the next ones, but they should be pretty straightforward. I mean, it's really very similar to the schedules, but just kind of capping it with a little bit lower cap. And that's kind of like what we do. This is where we are. We're talking about alternative assumptions and what appropriation that we need for. I mean, technically it's FY22 and 23. So you're living with this schedule for 2 years, at which time you'll be sitting here, hopefully not in a Zoom meeting, debating whether we go down to 7.25, right, Ed, in 2 years from now.
Yep. And hopefully we've had 2 great years and make it easier to go down to 7.25.
Exactly.
I have a dream.
I mean, as you know, if you continually not hit bad English, if you continually not hit your target, you're really just kind of, there's going to be these built-in losses that are forever. You're just going to kind of keep like having to deal with them rather than sort of facing, but I just don't see that that's happening consistently, that we're not hitting the target. I mean, we saw 3 out of the last 4 years, you've hit your target.
And again,
yeah, go ahead.
No, as you said, 10 years ago, we were at 8%. We've come down to 7.75 and
Yep.
7.625 and
Yeah, back in 2004, we were at 8%.
did what? Did we go down to, was it 7.875 maybe?
I think it was, Parax says 788, but I have a feeling
788, okay.
it might be 875 for 8 more years, and then down to 7.75. And then we took baby steps, another 10 basis points. So, I mean, we've definitely made progress. I think with your capping at the early years, you really do have a very conservative schedule here. There is no reason, even at the 4.5 increase for the first couple of years, that this would be frowned on. I think even if you didn't go down to 7.5, the 2033 is definitely, conservative, holding off those end years for the real. I don't know if this is, I don't want to diminish that this isn't a real crisis, but
If there was a real one, right? This is just a little one.
well, with these results, we got all like good news in here, right? We're coming off of an 18% return. It's about the uncertainty of what the next round will be. And, if you have to reduce the short term, that's going to just increase your unfunded, down the road. If you don't pay all the mortgage today, you'll just pay more, tomorrow.
Linda, do you do any cities that have a much lower funding rate than us? And what their schedules look like going out to
Absolutely.
2035, 2040 and
We work on I don't have any in 2040. They're all 2035 and before. Worcester Regional is one of our clients. I believe they're in the 40s or something crazy like that, maybe 50. They're at a capped 10% every single year to the end of their schedule. So they don't have a lot of wiggle room other than to extend the schedule if they couldn't bear more than the 10. So that's kind of a problem. We were at several years ago, it was like 995, and I said, you gotta I can't get there anymore. They had to kind of bump that up. So,
Yep.
So, the 8 is what statute says, but if you want to be fully funded by a certain day, sometimes 8 doesn't work either. But I do have a lot of, some others are at that, what I want to call the constant rate. And it's actually helpful for budgeting too. If you kind of know, we're looking at a 5.75, and then a lot of boards will say, we want to stick with that. We'd like that, 5.75 annual increase, and they can almost depend on it. And yes, there'll be some gains and losses that you got to fiddle with and make sure that your schedule still works. But if you aren't at 575 right to the end, then you do have that wiggle room. So I think that's the key, is keeping, and I think you guys have done that. You've kept, like our last schedule, I don't know how far the 8 increases went out, because if I try to go look, I got to get back on my server. As long as you keep some of those years available for the rainy day, I think that's what's important. It's when everybody's, and that's, that was good advice on PERAC's part, to have everybody kind of push to the 2035 year, so that when 2008 happens again, everybody isn't in crisis mode. But I bet almost all the systems were to be fully funded in 2028 when 2008 happened. So nobody had any wiggle room to shift that and push out a little bit more to absorb that blow. But here, I think there's a lot of years that you can kind of utilize for I want to call it the real crisis. These numbers aren't showing a real crisis yet, but we don't know what's going to happen in 2020 and 2021 for the next round.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. The only other, I'm going to stop sharing.
Hey, no one's I didn't see everybody. I didn't have everyone in my screen. Everyone's still awake. Yay.
Fred's still awake, right?
Successful meeting.
So the only other piece in here is the sheet of paper that Linda put together, which we've asked for, and that is an impact on a COLA base increase if the board were to consider that. It's pretty basic. If we were to go to a 13,000 COLA base, the FY22 appropriation would go up about $190,000, depending on which scenario we decide on. It could go, it might take a swing either way, but a 14,000 COLA base would increase the FY22 appropriation 376. And it would increase our liabilities as well. So obviously it's too late to do anything for July 1 of 2020, and I understand that. I think that what we should do, these numbers are not going to be stale numbers until the next valuation is done. So within the next year and a half, if the market turns around, say later this year, and we want to take a look at this, and the financial conditions improve, it might be a better discussion to have. Obviously, I don't expect anything to be done now, but in September or October, if our fund comes back, things aren't as bad as they might be, it might be time to consider whether we wanted to increase the base, but I'm sure the retirees will be appreciative of the 3% on the current base. But we are Braintree is in the minority of systems now that have a $12,000 COLA base. Most systems are above that COLA base. And, some of the scenarios that Linda's going to put together for us, if we decide to extend the funding schedule and give the town some relief going forward, at the same time, there might be some reason at that point to at least bring the base up by 1,000 at the same time. So everybody wins. But Ed knows the numbers much deeper than I do, and he sees them day in and day out. And I deal with it in Bridgewater as well. So I know everybody's on edge when the state's looking at a $4 billion deficit. How they're gonna impact local government is very important.
I think it's a good plan. We just wait till the summer gets through the summer, and then go back at it in the fall. It's getting to a point where we owe this to our retirees to try to get the base up. Maybe let the council turn it down, not us. So I don't know. It's my feeling, but I'd recommend we look at it in the fall again and see where we are. That's my opinion.
Sounds good.
Any other questions for Linda while we have her?
Oh, thank you, Linda. The presentation was great, and the numbers have been happy with them for the last couple evaluations you've done. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. You're
Okay, good.
welcome.
Thank
Just
you,
a-
Linda.
Just an aside, Ed, going down to 7.25 costs the same as raising the COLA base to 13,000, sorry.
13 million.
I think we should just do a one, somebody asked me one time, can we just do a $1 million COLA base and just basically give everyone a 3% increase?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That
My
would be
feeling,
pretty expensive.
well, my feeling, if we do go up to 14,000, we don't have the funds that particular year. We don't have to give 3% of 14,000. You give 2% of 14, which we've done in the past.
Right.
I think one year we gave 2% of the 13,000. Doesn't mean we have to grant the, 3% of 14. I don't think any of us wants the town to go bankrupt. We have responsibility to the town, but we also have responsibility to our retirees. We're in a minority. Very few communities are at 13%, 13,000.
12,000.
And I think we're one of the most affluent communities around, and maybe we need to start looking at it for our retirees. So
There's
one retiree's opinion. So
but now there's 27 systems at 12,000, and we're
Yeah.
we're one of those. There's 23 systems at 13, and there's 27 systems at 14.
Yeah.
9 systems are at 15, 7 are at 16, 4 are at 17, and 5 are at 18. So the 13 and 14 are 60 systems are either 13 or 14. So, and as we're starting to get questions from our retirees too about the base, because it gets out there. That's one of the downfalls of having so many different systems is it's not fair that one system can do 14 and yet one's at 12. You're talking a small amount of money if you go from 12 to 13,000 for an individual. On the big scale of it, it's a big number, as Ed knows. But when you get it down to Mildred that's looking for some groceries, it's peanuts. It's peanuts.
yeah, so we'll look at
Mildred, but just use the name.
we'll look at it in September and see what happens, and if things look better, maybe we can go forward somewhat. So anything else, Linda?
No,
Okay.
thank you, Linda.
All right, you're quite
Thanks again,
welcome.
Linda.
Have
Appreciate
a
your
good
time.
evening,
Linda.
everybody.
Thank you. We'll be in
Bye
touch.
now.
Bye-bye. Let's see, the rest of the meeting, what do we have left here? Anything?
Freddie had something, right?
Yeah, new business. I think it's
COVID.
under new business.
COVID-19? Yeah.
Just a question as far as the members of the system that were placed on furlough or had their hours reduced. It's probably a stupid question, but will that affect their calculation for the last 3?
No.
It
Now,
won't.
as far as I know, I'm not aware of anyone that has been furloughed 100%. I'm
No.
not-
Nope.
So anybody who dropped their hours, their salary for this period will be lower, so we would bypass that reduction when if they were to retire in the next 3 years. So we would simply go by outside the high 3 that they had.
Okay. Yeah, that was a question specifically asked. They're within the 2-year window. And because of that, their reduction in hours, they asked me, and I really didn't have a straight answer, so I just wanted to get one. So
Right.
you'd sort of
For that.
black that part out and go with the greater of the 3.
It's been
if
done
you
in the
will.
it's been done in the past, and it would be done. Yeah, most people, if they might stick out 3 more years after this, so then it wouldn't affect them. But we got some calls on that. Yeah.
Okay.
So Dennis, is that a policy, or does that take some sort of a action by the board?
You would have to, when someone does come in to retire, you would approve every retirement anyway. And if that situation were to arise, we would certainly have that information in front of you.
Okay.
And I would show that how past practice has been to do that, and PERAC would not hurt us or note that on an audit if they saw something like that.
Do you know if PERAC do guidance on that? Because I would think that it's going to be a problem across the state.
Yeah, I'll look up some past practice and see what information is out there regarding that. Yes.
Yeah, it's always good to be in conformance with
Absolutely.
the guidance from the state, or or what others are doing.
Right.
I thought the way the statute read, it talked about your high 3 years for pension calculation. Generally, it's your last 3, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
But it's consecutive. It's your consecutive 36 months. That's what we do here. It's your consecutive 36 months of highest earnings.
Correct.
So if there's a blip in there because of a furlough, we would have to go outside that 36 months, and that's granted to give them because it's no fault of their own.
Correct.
Anything else? No? All right. Joe, did you get my email?
I did. Thank you.
Sorry. I was looking, I get paint. I was painting. I get it all over you.
That's what you do in retirement, right?
Yeah, painting my daughter's house, not mine.
Yeah.
I have 2 houses to maintain. None of them mine.
Well, maybe we'll raise the base, then you don't have to paint people's houses.
I definitely need to raise the base,
Yeah.
Probably up to 100,000. No, okay. I think our next meeting is scheduled for the 25th
Of June.
of June. Yeah. I mean, if anything comes up with Lyndon that we need to meet ahead of time, I'm sure we could do that, if it helps you out, Ed, or whatever. So, I think we're all around, so.
So we're up for Thursday, the 25th.
That's correct, yeah.
4 p.m., maybe we can meet in person. I can hope,
Oh,
right?
that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Yeah, we can check out that new AC.
Yeah.
We'll need it.
Unfortunately, it didn't go into the conference room.
Oh, sure.
No, of course not.
Yeah, well, it guarantees a short meeting.
All right. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda, so we will see everybody next month. Is the 25th fine for everybody?
Yep.
Works for me.
All right. Sounds good.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Ed, do we need to talk about the trip to Florida? Are you good?
I'll give you a call later.
Okay, give me a call. All right. Bye,
Great,
everybody.
thanks.
You guys.
Right,
Thank
be
you.
safe.
Guys,
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
thanks, guys. See ya.